order. Would you please join us for the pledge?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
But you know what I was praying for? Motion to adjourn.
Roll call, please.
Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Excused. Reading of our minutes from our city council meeting on September 10th. Are there any questions on those?
I'll make a motion to accept them.
Motion by Nancy to approve.
Second.
Second by Steve. Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried. No public hearing scheduled for this evening, so we will move on to boards, commission meetings. Anything additional from committee?
Nope.
Library. Brett is excused this evening, but he did ask I express to the council that there is an art exhibit at the library tomorrow from 5 to 7 p.m. from local artist and retired school art teacher Bill Wiggins. So I'm passing it on for Brett to know. Additional on Plan Commission. Is there anything for council? Zoning Board of Appeals this evening?
They met earlier this evening.
Added to the council. CDA meets next week. Business Improvement District, anything?
Meets tomorrow. We have 4 more applications for downtown improvements.
Awesome. Fire and Police Commission meeting? No. Utility Commission?
Monday, but I did want to mention Public Power Week. Also would like to attend. We have an open house 11 to 7.
I did put that in last week's article, so it was in there. Okay. Anything else at all, Randy? No, he can hear me. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Are there any questions by any council members? There's nothing that you would like to remove or have questions about? I motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Steve.
I'll second.
Second by Mike.
Aye.
Motion is carried. To business. I have nothing this evening. I did want to ask Jeff, though, how open house went last night.
Excellent. A lot of people.
I heard I could have gone up in the truck if I had gotten back in town in time.
A lot of adults up there, yes.
Yes?
Kids, we had a lot of segments. Fire safety house. A lot of displays and fire prevention materials. So, very well.
So, thank you guys for me for everything they do with schools and, you know. Yeah, you have a lot of kids you're reaching during that week. Thank you very much. I also want to say thanks to Jeff and library's not here, but Jeff and Dale for helping with the Japanese again this year. I know one of the things they brought up at lunch was going up in the lift, so it's always a great time for them when they get to see the departments, and they always have a lot to say about that over lunch, so thank you. On to resolutions and ordinances. The first item is discharging and carrying firearms and guns that was brought over from our committee. You have on that you want to talk about?
I'm not sure, Mayor. I can't even find it on my iPad, but it's in here somewhere.
You did draw it up.
I did. I did. And this was just really a technical correction, and, we talked about the idea of carrying firearms and drinking at the same time, and it's really designed to protect against that. So if there are any questions, I can try to answer
Want to
those.
see it?
As soon as you find it on your iPad?
I just found it up.
Okay.
It's way at the end.
If anyone has any questions, we discussed this at the committee of the whole.
Anyone have any questions on it?
The only thing I wonder, and I missed the last meeting, I apologize, but is this something that's pretty common in other communities?
Yes, it's actually designed to bring our ordinance in compliance with the state statute. So we're aligned with the state statute. The reason that we try to enact these as ordinances is it gives us the ability to enforce it on a lower scale rather than sending everything off to the DA.
Mm-hmm.
To approve this ordinance and to waive the first reading if you see fit.
Make that motion.
To waive the first reading also?
Yes.
Motion by Nancy to approve ordinance, is your number 2?
1304.
1304. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Pete. Questions or discussion?
Aye.
Mike Johnson.
Aye.
Nancy Vanderkamp.
Aye.
Brian Milky.
Aye.
Keith Amor.
Aye.
Second ordinance in front of us is 1305, and this is on the Central Business District Design Guidelines, so we made some minor changes to at the committee on that. If not, I would ask for a motion so to waive the first reading and adopt.
I'll make that motion to waive the first reading and adopt.
Motion by Steve,
I'll second it.
second by Nancy. Any other discussion?
Roll call, please. Steve Bash.
Aye.
Mike Johnson.
Aye.
Nancy Vanderkamp.
Aye.
Brian Milky.
Aye.
Keith Amor.
Aye.
She's very quiet this evening. Moving on to our third ordinance, and that's the discussion and possible on Resolution 10-8-1301 on the obligation bonds. It's here tonight. Hi, Phil.
Mayor, Phil Costin with Ellers, and I came with old technology, paper. So it's not in your iPad, yeah.
All right.
Two documents that I handed out prior to the meeting. One, sale results. I'm going to spend a little time going through that. And the second is the final resolution. Did you get a draft resolution in the packets? Okay. This replaces that. We now know who the winning bidder was, what the rates are, et cetera. So the resolution I handed out is the one that you would be acting upon. Last month, we were here talking about the financing of the swimming pool, and we laid out a couple of options for the council to consider. One had the debt being issued over a 20-year period, the second over 15 years. Your direction was the 15-year option and then changing the principal payment to a 12-1 payment. So those changes were made and reflected in the official statement. And you should all have received this official statement at your home. This is the prospectus we use then to sell the bonds this morning. So today at 10 a.m. we took bids on the bonds, and the results of that are in the sale packet. So I'm going to just talk briefly about pages. We had 4 firms set up. We ended up with 3 bids. The winning bidder was Baird. And if you look at the first page in that packet, what you're going to see is they have quite the consortium that they have worked on this issue. There is probably about 15 to 20 firms, and why that is Baird is the kind of the head of the syndicate, and then they have a lot of different other firms that are going to buy pieces of it. And so that's what happens. They buy it, and then they work with this syndicate group to essentially sell it elsewhere. And you can see there's a laundry list of other firms that are part of this. The net interest rate is 2.61%. As a comparison, when I was here, we estimated about 2.8%. So they're a little bit lower than what was projected when I came. The net result of that I'll get into in a little bit, but it reduces the overall cost a little bit as part of the issue. So Robert W. Baird out of Milwaukee was the winning bid, again at 2.61% for 15 years. We flip to page 2, two other bids that were received. Bankers Bank out of Madison at 2.6788%, and then Bosk, which is really the Bank of Oklahoma, and they're doing business in the Milwaukee area. A couple of guys that used to work for M&I Bank now work for Bosk, and they bid and they were at 2.6885%. So 3 very close bids that were received by these firms. On the next page, I realize I don't have page numbers on here. On the next page, looks like this. We have a before and after in the yellow. The before is the amount that you authorized, the $4,290,000. That's what you authorized when I was here last month. What we're going to ask you to approve is $4,245,000. So $45,000 less. And why is that? Well, these firms, and we see this on a weekly basis that we're in the market with different communities, are primarily submitting bids that are what are called premium. And the premium bid is that where they'll actually provide more money than what you have requested. And in return, it enables them to actually assign a higher interest rate to those different maturities, and it makes it easier for them to sell to their investors. That's oversimplifying it, but that's essentially what happens. What we're able to do with that premium then is to use that money to reduce the amount of debt that you're actually issuing. So we're able to reduce it from $4,290,000 to $4,245,000 by using that premium. So that's how most of the bonds that we are seeing are being purchased with premiums. So this is similar to what we see around the state. So the actual resolution, the final resolution that's in front of you, is for the $4,245,000. Again, the result of the issue is that the amount of interest to be paid, principal and interest to be paid, has been reduced a little bit. On the following page, this is where it says City of Waupun proposed 2013 GO bonds, total debt service 15 years. We had identified a total after the county's contribution of $4.4 million, around $290,000, $295,000 a year. That would be the annual principal and interest that would be due. And if you flip the page to the final, it's $4,327,000, or about $80,000 less. That $80,000 is essentially spread out over that 15 years. So it's not a big difference, but it drops it somewhere in that $5,000 to $10,000 range, $5,000 range on an annual basis. So it's a little bit less than what was projected, which is always good news. So the payments on average are going to be somewhere again between $285,000 and $290,000 for this pool project. In the following couple of pages is a Moody's Investor Service rating report. I'm going to just talk about this in general terms. Every time you go out, you're a rated community, and every time you go out to issue debt, you have to go through a rating process. And last week we had a rating call with Moody's. And I want to just take you back first. About 5-6 years ago, and for many years before that, the City of Waupun was rated at A1. A1 is a very strong rating, and you were rated as an A1 credit. About 3 to 4 years ago, Moody's went through what they called a recalibration. And at that time, a lot of corporate bonds that they rate as well were really struggling. And so what they ended up doing in the recalibration is moving a lot of municipalities up. You didn't go through any kind of process for that to go up to the AA3, but you, like most Wisconsin communities, got bumped up as a result of the Moody's recalibration. You're back to the A1, and now I'll go through some of this in detail. And the primary reason is they're comparing you back again to corporate securities in the corporate world. Better off now than they were 3 to 4 years ago. And what they're really looking at is really 3 different issues. One, fund balance. You have a very, very strong fund balance. You've drawn on it a little bit to help with some of the economic development activities. They've acknowledged that in here, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's the first issue, and you still have a very strong fund balance. Second is just the tax base of the community, and the tax base for the city of Waupun compared to other AA3 communities, they felt you were much smaller in just general size, just tax base, compared to a lot of the other AA3s. The AA3s that they typically will rate at AA3 are $500 million higher in tax value, and you're substantially lower than that. Third is just kind of general economic activity in the community. While you're starting to see things over the last year, and there's some real positive trends, and not a lot of that has hit the tax rolls yet. There's stuff coming, and hopefully as that growth occurs, you can jump back up to the AA3. So they have laid that all out in the rating report over the next 5 or 6 pages here. Some of the strengths that they have identified for the city, again, institutional presence of large state correctional facilities support employment stability, and then that you still, again, have a very strong reserve in place. They've identified a number of challenges. I take exception to a couple of these, and I'm sure Kyle would too. But small tax base, experiencing valuation declines. You're not dissimilar to any other municipality, not just in Wisconsin, but nationally, that have seen valuation declines. It's just property values dropping over the last number of years. And actually, I think yours have been significantly less than what we've seen statewide. Again, reliance on intergovernmental revenues. Again, you're not different than anybody else. Relatively limited revenue raising flexibility. That's levy limits. That's everybody in Wisconsin. You're no different there as well. And then general fund advances to TID, even though we did provide them the details showing that that would be reimbursed back over time, back through the TIFs. They still acknowledge that. So that's kind of what's happening in their world as far as how they see the rating. I can tell you the primary issue that they really focused on was just the general size of the community, not so much the financials. Towards the last page of this report, they've identified what could move the rating up and down. Rating moving up, it's again the revenue coming back into the fund balance. That's one of them. Maintaining a general fund liquidity, again, fund balance, and then diversification and expansion of your city's tax base, which is what you're really attempting to do with your tax increment district, and you're seeing some of that already. What could move the rating down? What they've identified is declines in your fund, really primarily in your fund balance, further declines. So all in all, it's not a negative report. It kind of brings you back to where you have been rated for a long, long time at A1. Through the recalibration is how you got bumped up. So the last 2 pages are 2 charts to give you a feel for what's happening in the bond market. We're in interesting times between government shutdown and kind of chaos in Washington. I almost said Madison because that was, previous years. The second last chart shows what's happened over the last year. We saw, again, a little spike in interest rates. They've dropped back down, fortunately, and that's somewhat reflected in the rates that you've received. And then the last page is looking at it over the last 30 years, and this is my attempt to make you feel good about borrowing money now. You can see that even though we're not at the bottom, we're still, when you look at it over a long term, you're still at a period where rates are still very low. So all in all, you have a strong A1 rating of the city. You have received 3 bids, which is excellent, with a lot of people participating. Probably about 18 firms were participating in those 3 bids, and rates came in a little bit less than what we had projected for you last month.
Just to reflect back 2 years ago when we borrowed for the ball fields and Mayfair and Shaler Drive extensions, I believe the net interest rate back then was about 3.4, 3.5%. So I mean, it's 2.6%,
Yep.
it's
It's a lot of money.
15 years, right?
Yep.
Anyone have any questions for Phil?
It was an interesting process, and I think this is what I've been through with this, with the rating, and they really focus on fund balance, but, you know, you try to convince them that we're better off today, even though we've drawn fund balance down economic-wise with development that's occurred, and the fact that our fund balance reserves, for the most part, are going to be back within our policy levels at year's end. It's still the fact that we've drawn that down, and the fact that if something does happen, until the funds come back, we don't really have a real good source of raising revenue. We're pretty much restricted on anything we do moving forward, from raising fees to, Randy probably likes this one, moving anything over to the utility bill to, you know, increase any type of capacity. Obviously, levy limits are concerned, so pretty much this is what it is, and we don't have a lot of opportunities if we need revenue moving forward. And I think, you know, position-wise, you know, if you look back 2 years ago and the development that's occurred from the Decker development, the Taco Bell development, you know, getting the infrastructure out there, we're far better positioned, but yet they see it a little differently. Yeah.
Yeah, they look at it as a snapshot in time, not really looking forward. They look at it, hey, where are you today? We've drawn a little bit out of the fund balance to create some of the economic activity, and there's a plan to be reimbursed back, but they don't necessarily acknowledge that because that's not part of the financials right now. Looking at it as what's there. So.
And as Bill mentioned, 3 of those measures are really out of our control. I mean, declining sales, for instance, a 3% decrease in property values is like a $100,000 house selling for $97,000. But yet, when you talk to them and you see for 2012-13, the manufacturing values have gone up 7% and commercial values have gone up 11%. You know, I don't know why they didn't weigh more on that too. So, and as Phil mentioned, the projects that we've approved haven't even hit the tax rolls yet, as far as the apartments and the Taco Bell and some of those developments.
I think that, you know, Phil can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think, you know, we got bumped up because of external factors involving more the national economy, and I think now they're taking a look at that again. I mean, they're not looking at us in a vacuum. They're looking at it comparatively, and I think they're saying, well, some of the things that we downgraded before we're probably now upgrading. And once they make that decision, then I think they're going to look at, fine, if we're going to downgrade you on that basis, we've got to tie it to something internal. So I'm not saying you don't want to pay attention to this, but I think you want to take a look at it in light of the other things you're trying to accomplish as well, and realize that part of this is reflected by the national economy also.
They're not just comparing it to Wisconsin, similar Wisconsin communities, but nationwide. So they have their, I'm sure, their criteria for each category, and if you don't fit in all of those, they're going to look at it more closely. And the overall tax base became a driver for why they think it should be an A1.
And we know half of our tax base is exempt, so we do have a very small tax base, which requires us to be dependent more on state shared revenue because we receive more in relation to that low property value. But it's interesting to look back at the 2011 rating. The 2 things that said that could move the rating down was increase in the city's debt burden, which obviously we're borrowing money, and then the second thing was declines in the available general fund reserve. So those 2 things have happened over the last 2 years, and so I don't think it was surprising.
Any questions? Everybody went through the resolution? I would ask for a motion to approve Resolution 10-1301.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Nancy to approve.
Second.
Second by Steve. Is there any other discussion?
Aye.
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 All right, thank you very much.
On to the payment of the bills of the month. Questions on those?
Was that in here? I had it in here.
I'll make that motion. To approve bill.
I haven't seen them yet.
By Nancy to approve the bills of the month. Is there a second?
I will second.
Second by Ryan. Any other discussion?
Aye.
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 Okay, and we have some licenses to approve. Good, okay, we'll put them together then, and
I'll make a motion to approve all the license.
by Nancy to
I'll
approve. Second by Steve. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We have no closed session for this evening. I only need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Steve, second by Mike. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's quick, you guys.
Point where